Wild Feminine is such, I want to start with that book because that's how I discovered you and I loved it. It's such an incredible book talking about women taking back their femininity, not through force, but through the true nature of being a woman. So I want to ask you, what inspired you or, kind of like channel through you to write this?
Right. Well, I think partially I could feel energy. And so I would put my hands on people and feel things, but I didn't have any way to really understand it. And I was working as a women's health physical therapist, which I don't know if you know what that is.
No.
Not everyone does. So physical therapy, and then it's a specialty of physical therapy that works on the pelvic bowl. Should be our basic women's health care. Women really benefit from having a massage internally. It helps with the hormones. It helps with the flow. So many women are just holding congestion there. So it started with that. I was working with women on their bodies and feeling this potent energy and wondering, how do we, what is this? And why are so many women actually not really using it, including myself? So I got curious about what this was. And I went to literature, to books to see what I could find. And because I love books, mostly it was root chakra, first chakra, just very general. And so I started taking notes, working with women and taking notes on the patterns really that I saw in the left ovary, the right ovary, the womb, and ended up writing a book. It took about 8 years of
a lot of,
And I guess, the question for me was, what is the feminine? What is it? And how do we access it in modern lives? What does that look like? Is it high heels and lipstick, or is it's something you can
energetic
sense? And when you feel it, you know it. And a lot of times it's missing. So I wanted to tap back into that for myself and also just help women access that more in a true way for themselves.
It's so incredible. I feel that books and people find you when you're meant to receive them. And so I came across Wild Feminine when I was starting kind of my fertility journey and getting in touch with this, I've been dealing with infertility. So what does my fertility journey look like for me? Getting in touch with that feminine side, and we're so programmed by society to be like really tough and we can do it all and we don't need men. And I don't necessarily agree with that narrative. So it's that softening and falling into yourself and that trust and surrender, which a lot of us have lost along the way, right? Because of the way society's kind of made us and this conditioning that we've had. So it's almost unconditioning. And a lot of the stuff when I was reading this book in your work and the way you're communicating is like allowing women to get back in touch with themselves.
Well, and if you think of a field of energy, so we have our bodies, which are physical, but then the energy field is kind of around and through the body. I would note that it tended to be more on the left side, which is the right brain. So it's the more the fluid, the mystery, the deeper sense of receptivity. And so it's not the hard driving, which is more the masculine aspect. So it's about tapping back into that softness and ability to receive energy.
So what is it when it comes to like fertility or infertility and the process of the massage and the process of moving the energy around that area?
Well, I would say it starts with women's health care, which truly we're not actually taking care of women's bodies, So that's the first, even beyond fertility, it's just basic health care. Women are living with a lot of tension and congestion, and the pelvic bowl is actually part of our immune system. So it's where
I don't even know that.
I know, no one does. These are things that I learned as I was working with the body, and women felt better and had better, all kinds of things improved with the massage. So the hormones flow better, the energy flows better. That pertains to many things. If a woman feels good in her center, it really impacts her entire life. So I would say fertility naturally flows from that. Sexuality flows from that, just a sense of well-being and ease. Fertility, of course, we have to look at, there's also environmental impacts, and I think that can't be denied. So there's the individual experience, there's also the collective. So, certainly we're all being impacted by that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about like our pelvic is so deeply connected to our overall health as well as women, especially our immune system and all of that stuff, is it because also that can be connected from a spiritual aspect and I guess physical too, about why women are getting into earlier and earlier menopause besides the environmental stuff that we all know about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think on a chi level, if you think of like acupuncture or oriental medicine, chi is the life force, the breath that flows through
Right.
our bodies, and powerful energy flows through the pelvic bowl in both men and women. And so when that's blocked or limited, whether it's through the physicality or the muscles tension, or it's just the energetic depletion or the imbalance, all of
Right.
those things play a role. And when you aren't accessing the chi there, it actually impacts the physical too. So, of course, menopause, hormonal resilience, so many things.
Right.
So, even just working with the breath in the ovaries, which is something I learned just working through the female body, is breathing into the ovaries. I had women find that they also had more milk production if they were nursing,
Wow.
things that we don't learn or
Yeah.
talk about. The womb is also not just for pregnancy, but it actually is a portal. And it's a space to access information. So
Is that what you mean by like when people say they have gut feelings? Is it that sort of or is it like a higher dimension of?
I think it's an entry point. Think of babies or all of us that came in through the womb portal, right? So other cultures sometimes talk about it as an access point.
Right.
Donna Lihio is a Mayan shaman that talked about how that his village would listen to the dreams of menstruating women in the morning to receive information for the village. And when I heard that story, I heard that from Rosita Arvigo, who studied with him. That blew me away as a Western woman, imagining that there would be leadership listening to the dreams of menstruating women, because it was an access point. It was a point where they could receive information. And as a Western woman, I had myself, I had no idea of that at all.
How long do when people come and have sessions with you and stuff, how many do they require? If it's for fertility, if it's just for, longevity, optimizing their health, like how many sessions do people require?
Well, I usually work with women 2 to 4 sessions.
Okay.
I'm very efficient because I've done this for
A long
decades.
time, yeah.
I have a 24-year-old, so
Yeah.
I started in earnest kind of doing more holistic when he was born. So somewhere between 2 to 4, 4 to 6. I think this is good annual care. So women will often come and see me annually for a tune-up. They also will come and see me just when they feel off or, life events. I mean, women hold the space for so many communities, so many families. And so they, come in and kind of have a place to set something down that they may be carrying. And it's really helpful.
If you're serious about your long-term health, there's one vitamin you're probably not getting enough of. No matter how clean your diet is, nearly 97% of people in the Western world are deficient in vitamin K2, and most don't even realize it. That's why K2 is nearly non-existent in modern diets, but it plays a huge role in heart health, circulation, bone strength, and even brain function. So here's why it matters so much. Low K2 levels can show up as weak bones, stiff muscle, bruising, wrinkles, and even forgetfulness and brain fog. It also is linked to major cardiovascular and bone health issues down the line. That's why I'm so excited about Just Thrive's K27, the only K2 supplement on the market that comes from 100% organic chickpea natto, the best source of K2. Delivers 320 mcg of pharmaceutical grade K27, the optimal daily dose. Has guaranteed potency so your body actually absorbs what it needs. It's microbiologist formulated, clinically tested, and supports your heart, bones, brain, and circulation at the source. I've made it a part of my daily routine, and I think you'll love it too. Check it out at justthrivehealth.com and use code Biohack-it for a discount and enjoy. I'm so grateful, firstly, to be born a woman. I never go through life saying I would want to be anything else but a woman. But I also think it's a huge responsibility. And I think it's a responsibility because you are the container for your family, right? I don't think men, bless them, but they don't have the capacity, the things that we do, right? So you're the container for your family. You keep all of that together. A lot of us tend to have careers. So we have our own personal dreams, ambitions, and goals as well. But we have to make sure that those don't overshadow our roles still as wives and mothers and all of that stuff. And at the same time, then we're also giving to community, right? Through our love and our touch and building human connections and keeping people together. And then it's the role when you eventually become a mother, you have that additional role to play. So we have so many different hats that we wear. And today's modern woman is also very much going after her career like I am at the same time while juggling all these traditional roles, so you have both. And it's not because in my case, not because my husband's like, oh, you need to go work. It's because I have my own personal ambition to do that, right? So it's not an expectation. It's just a desire. And so I think women actually need more self-care more than ever. And it's funny that in traditional roles, gender roles, I would say, and in traditional like marriage setups back in the day, especially in the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, women had a lot more self-care in the way they were slower pace of life. They would watch the kids, they would cook. Not that that's not really hard work, but they didn't have this external pressure. But it's crazy, as the external pressure has built up, we've gone further away from self-care.
And so even as you were saying that, I don't know if you noticed it, but you were gesturing with your right hand, which is, this is where, so it's pattern recognition that I see with women, where when they're talking about the external and a little bit more the masculine, they tend to gesture and talk about on the right side. And the left side is the receptivity, and that's the self-care and the intake. And it is very out of balance for most women. So women are trying to hold all these things, and they're in the external realm. They're not pulling in enough. And the imbalance, you can kind of get away for it until you can't. So I'm usually the voice saying, bring in more.
If you're feminine.
Take time to nourish and receive. And it's not, you can't think your way there. You actually have to receive, intake the breath. It's something deeper than the mental. It's a body experience.
So this is why I'm a really big fan of plant medicine, especially ayahuasca. It's something I've been doing for 6 years. And it allows me, it's a female energy, it's a female medicine. It allows me to sit with that sense of real feminine and my sense of self and really receive, because I have nowhere else to go in that ceremony and she's not letting me go anywhere, but be with myself. And that's where I get some of my biggest downloads, and I would say expansive. I don't think you travel upwards. I think you expand as a soul. That expansive experiences that I have, and then from there I can come back and tell myself, slow down, pay attention, don't go too hard on this. Like that kind of, it softened me up almost over the years.
I do think we're going to see more and more people reaching for mushrooms, for example, or ayahuasca or plant medicine to understand, to kind of repair something that's been lost, because that does get us in touch with the feminine in our bodies and the place where we receive energy. So it's a reset, and it takes you a bit out of the Western mind, which is more go, 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 external masculine.
I was going to ask you, Tami, do you deal with women? Like a lot of women are now getting diagnosed with like ovarian cysts. I used to have a lot when I was younger, or like fibroids or other things like that, endometriosis, PCOS. From an energetic level, what are you seeing?
I see the stress on women's bodies. It's like, you know how if you go and you see like a stressed plant, what it looks like? That's what it looks like in the energy field. And so we kind of have to say, okay, well, where's the stress coming from? Is that from how my life is shaped? Is that how I learned to shape my life? What's happening? And then find those places to literally give chi or water to the plant, the body energy. And, again, I think there's the mind, which feels like the pace can be very rapid. Body pace is really slower. So that's why coming back to the earth rhythms, it can be imperfect. It doesn't have to be
perfect.
But just knowing that there is something calling you to move a bit differently, that helps. And I think it's something, maybe this story is coming to mind, where my niece was going out. I live in Portland, Oregon. It can get really cold and rainy in the winter. And she was headed to a soccer field, and it's, of course, soccer season, dark and rainy. She was having menstrual cramps, and she was getting ready to take an Advil and just head out. And I said, kudos to you, whatever you want to do, but you also can choose to sit it out, take a rest. When you are menstruating, dark and cold is not good for you, so it's okay to shelter. So a strong woman could also be taking time off the field to protect your body. And it just, I think a light bulb went on for her that she had an option. It's things like that. And it's resetting the mind frame. So it's like you are actually included. Your body is included. Your female needs, your female body is included
in this choice. And with all the stuff that you see about helping people reconnect with the female body, how do you teach women their kind of role versus the masculine role, like kind of breaking that down? Because everybody, men and women, both have feminine and masculine energy.
Absolutely. Well, it's really individual. That's where I would say there's generalities, and one generality is actually making sure you can feel your feminine. Do you know where it is in your body? Do you know where it is in your energy field? Can you hear it? Can you make space for it? The book that's here, Wild Creative, kind of answers that a little bit. That book is really, how do you live from a feminine place and make a productive life? What does that look like? It's more rhythmic and cyclical, and that book answers it for men and women. I actually wrote that book for my sons.
Amazing.
That they would need. There's actually, I borrowed this from him this morning. My son lives here. And so I said, can I borrow your copy of Wild and Creative? I just reread what I wrote to him at the beginning, and it almost made me teary because it's just honoring, again, that every being's creative. And when you tap into your feminine and your download, then you can put it into a masculine output form. And that's the beauty of your life.
Right. That's such a beautiful way to look at things and kind of understand it. So when you see people, are you able to see or sense energy right away, or how does it work?
Yes. And so I can, but usually I turn it off. It's like, the volume can go up or down. And so if I turned it on and I walked around in the world, it would be overwhelming.
Oh, it'd be overwhelming for you.
And also not my job. It's like I've learned boundaries as an energy sensitive. So I turn it off. And then when I'm sitting with someone, I just turn it on.
Yeah.
And then I look at their field. And really my goal is to teach them what I see. So it's not like me just reading it for them. I ask them to sense with me and ask them to, pay attention and see what they feel. And invariably people can feel it. They just haven't been given those tools. So they're like, oh yeah, I see that.
I can see that. Yeah. So this would be a fun exercise to do. So when you walked in, we just hugged. What did you sense?
Yeah. So I see your beauty and I see all the creativity. I see that it's mostly on the right side, which is the output and the dominant. Yeah. And then if, there's so it's kind of like you're an egg of energy, right? Yeah. There's a little less chi on that left, especially from your ear down. And it's like that's where the deficit is showing up. Right. You need more chi in. And, that is probably playing a role in various aspects in your life. And it's one of those things where I would then go deeper with you about why. Now, sometimes it's just because you go, and you don't refill. Yeah. But it also is often deeper lineage and other, belief patterns. So that's when I go and I will talk to someone a little bit about, that can be mother line. Of course, mother and father both have feminine and masculine, but most people code their mother on the left side and their father on the right side. So that's when I look at lineage issues and just see what beliefs people held that might be encoded that you want to look at so you can start to shift. It is
it's fascinating. It's funny you say that because my mom was extremely both my parents are extremely alpha. Both of them were extremely dominant. Both of them had a lot of male energy. My dad makes sense, but so did my mom. And so if I have that, it is to some sort. And I have actually spent years softening myself from that. So I didn't come across as maybe masculine as I would have been taught to when I was a little bit younger.
And where is she now?
She's passed. Both my parents have passed, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, because that's another thing is sometimes, so it can show up as someone not there in physical form. So it looks a little more ethereal to me. So this is where I would talk to someone and say, is your mom still here? It's interesting that both your parents are passed, because especially I feel that on your left side. Yeah. But it may be also that your mom is kind of trying to talk with you a bit on the left side. And so, this is where we get into the deeper aspects where it'll show up, and I kind of see it almost like a film of there's something calling your attention over there more deeply, and it's asking to be accessed more fully. So
right. Amazing. People aren't talking about this enough, but I truly want to optimize your health. We need to be paying attention to EMFs. We are constantly plugged in, surrounded by wireless signals, radiation, frequencies that our bodies have never ever been able to handle at this level. Research has shown that EMFs can disrupt sleep, impact cellular function, and contribute to long-term health issues. Yet we're rarely talking about this or how to protect ourselves from this. This is why I was so excited when I first discovered Lila Quantum Tech. I met them 2 years ago at a biohacking conference in Austin and was absolutely blown away by the founder, Philip Mon. Hearing him on stage and learning about quantum energy technology completely shifted my perspective. I knew I had to try it for myself. And now, 2 years later, I'm so excited to have them partner with me on my podcast. One of my absolute favorite products, the Heal 360 capsule, which I wear on my quantum necklace every day. This isn't just any pendant. It's scientifically designed and quantumly charged to support your body's natural ability to heal, energize, and protect itself from harmful influences. People using it have reported more energy, mental clarity, better stress resilience, and relaxation, deeper sleep, and faster recovery. And that is also the feedback I got from our supper club when I gifted it to all our guests. Lila Quantum Tech is leading the way in quantum frequency healing with products designed to neutralize EMFs, enhance cellular function, and help your body operate at its best. I personally felt the difference since wearing Heal 360 capsule, and I think you'll love it too. Check it out at lilaq.com and use code Biohack-it for a discount. That is LEELAQ.com and use code Biohack-it. Happy healing. 1 in 3 women are affected by pelvic floor disorders. So firstly, what is a pelvic floor disorder and how do you diagnose it?
Right. I'm glad you're bringing this up because, again, women's health physical therapy is hardly known. It should be our mainstream care awareness. So pelvic floor disorder can range, but it can be chronic pain. It can be menstrual pain. It can be also just heaviness, urine leakage, chronic infections. Those are some of the examples. And definitely postpartum is often, and post-miscarriage, people can have different things going on.
Right.
And then when we work with the muscles and the alignment of the space, I work with the fascia. That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, fascia.
Fascia is my favorite.
And fascia is where all like traumas and emotions and all that stuff gets stored, right?
That's
right. Yeah.
That's right. And it's also, to me, it's the layer between the physical and the energetic. So it's quite fascinating. It's crystalline. So yeah, it contains everything. It needs to be mobile, but also supportive. It's a fascinating,
amazing. Okay.
I don't know if you call it a tissue, but it's a fascinating part of the body. And so in the pelvic bowl, it's really the secret sauce. It's what we should be working on for women's health is getting the fascia in good freedom and alignment and flow. Then everything flows better. The hormones flow better, the blood flow, the chi flow. And it helps with pelvic disorders. So anyone with pelvic pain should absolutely not be living with pelvic pain. It's something that you can clear with working on the fascia. It helps with fertility. It helps with menstrual. No one should have menstrual pain. That shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah. They also say menstrual pain should not be a thing. PCOS should not really be a thing. And going into menopause with uncomfortable signs and symptoms should not really be a thing either, because you want to be mindful of I just think that we just, as women, and I'll be the first to say this myself, we just don't take care enough of ourselves because we're so busy trying to exist in a way that we're not enjoying the gift of creation.
That, and I think we're not taught how to take care of ourselves.
Oh, for sure.
Here I was a women's health PT, and I learned, it was the first time I actually had seen the anatomy of the pelvic bowl. So the first thing I do when I sit with women is I show them the anatomy of the pelvic bowl, and it's the first time usually they've ever seen that, you know?
Yeah.
It's, you may have had a speculum inside.
Yeah,
you
but
don't know
no,
it's there actually. And so it's really helpful to kind of know so you can take better care of it. And, you know, so my work ranges from kind of like a midwife where I'm talking to them about how to take care of their bodies to the deeper energetic realm, to the fact that they have a portal that they can access and use, and there's potential, and not just trauma imprints, but that there's medicine there. That's really important.
What do you mean medicine there?
Well, I think, you know, we talk about body keeps the score, which
Yes,
I think is groundbreaking and fascinating.
It's incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in the pelvic bowl, I work with a lot of trauma and trauma imprints. And though the body knows how to resolve those and heal those. And if you follow the body's lead, it will show you where energy's frozen or where something needs to be cleared, especially in the pelvic bowl with the gifts that are there. The womb is a natural clearer. The ovaries are natural resources of all kinds of creative energy. They can weave new patterns. So once you tap into that and you access that, it takes the trauma and it just moves it, and it re-accesses the wholeness in a whole new way. So there's a lot of medicine.
Is there a way when you go in, you can tell somebody has trauma from the frequency of the energy being released or the way the fascia feels? Wow,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, and actually the reason I started writing Wild Feminine was the day after 9/11, after that event, and the trauma in women's bodies that I saw across the country.
Yeah.
Even though nobody was directly impacted, everyone had a trauma imprint. And I thought, oh, our bodies record trauma collectively.
Yes.
So by that, lots of trigger points, a sense of sort of dissociation. Energetically, it sounds a little bit like static on the radio. So there's a real signature to it.
Right.
But then you can rebalance it. And then you start, that's why I started writing Wild Feminine was I want to help women access that medicine and know how to use it.
And then Tami, how do people listening to this tune into these things? So if they don't have access to you because you're amazing, but you live in Oregon, what's the starting point?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a few things online. So each of my books. So I have Wild Creative, Wild Feminine. Wild Creative is about the field. Wild Feminine is about the pelvic bowl medicine, and then Wild Mothering is about the postpartum birth and also how to mother from this place.
Okay.
So those books, and then I have book clubs recorded where I've done a series of going through the books with people, and you can access those at my website. And then I also do energy sessions online.
And you can do virtual energy sessions as well?
Oh, yes.
So the physical ones obviously you have to do in person, but the virtual, you can just do it from wherever.
Yes, you can. I read people's fields. I work with people all over the globe. So.
And do you, is it like, for example, somebody like me who's going through a currently fertility journey, like is it like in between, let's say the trigger shot, or how does it kind of work?
It's important to do it when you're not active.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say,
the ovaries get stimulated and it's too much for the body work. But yes, in between is wonderful. People travel and come and get treatments, and then they go back and they work on fertility. I train practitioners. So on my website, there's a list of practitioners that I've trained.
Incredible. So in your method and stuff?
In my method, holistic pelvic care, so that women can receive that care.
And can women, when they're pregnant, because they want to expand out their hips and their pelvic, can they see you when they're actually pregnant, or is that something?
I don't work internally when they're pregnant. Now, some PTs do. My work is particularly deep, so I leave the nest alone is how I see it. But I do work energetically, and so sometimes it's a combo. They might see someone for body work, but then they can see me for energy, because things come up when you open that portal, and so I will work energetically, and that's always fascinating.
And for women listening to this, right, and they're like, Tami, how do we apply this without getting overwhelmed? Because there's so much information out there.
Absolutely.
Where is like the starting point for them to start taking these little lessons and applying it to their life?
I mean, really, I would just say first it's just trying to sense your pelvic bowl. Just drop down from the head. Especially in Western culture, we live a lot in our head. So, we drop down to the heart, and then there's a heart-womb connection, drop down to the pelvic bowl in the womb, and just start to feel. Imagine you're sensing life from there, and what does it feel like? Wild Feminine is written in story, so it's very accessible.
Okay.
It's a wonderful way to start learning how to be in your pelvic bowl. And there's women's stories. They're not actually, no one is a real story, but they're based on configurations of many women I've seen, so that you can start to go, okay, that's the quality of the left ovary. Oh, that's the quality of the right ovary.
Right.
That's the quality of the womb. And how does that show up in my life, or how do I want it to show up?
What is the qualities of the right ovary versus the left ovary?
Right. So left ovary is more feminine.
Okay.
So it does tend to be a little bit more of the internal self-care. If you listen to your left ovary, you'll be taking better care of yourself. Like when I heard you say, "Can you make me a facial?" That's appointment. That's the left ovary talking. It's maybe a little combo. The right ovary is like speaking up, but the left ovary is about nourishment. She's the goddess. If we lived from there, we would be taking really good care of ourselves, pleasure and joy, and just nourishment and body care. The right ovary is a little bit more of an adventurer, a go-getter. Let's tackle that. Let's make that dream happen. Goal-oriented, and we do come from one ovary from our mother's body, so that's interesting too. There's almost like a personality.
I'm very I sound very right ovary when you describe the right ovary. I'm very much like get out of my way kind of energy. I'm gonna create everything that I want, and nothing's gonna stop me.
You're gonna go for it.
But it's funny that my right ovary is reconstructed, and it's practically the size of like a blueberry, versus my left ovary is a normal size.
Yes.
But
you might have overdrawn it. That's the thing, is we overdraw on our chi. So if you were listening to the left ovary, then you might slow down a little bit. It's like it's kind of, both are important, and really we should be accessing both.
Right.
So that they can work together. That's the real work of this time, is to access both the feminine and the true feminine, the true masculine, and working with that yin yang in our own bodies, what that looks like.
If you know me, you know I avoid seed oils like the plague. They're everywhere, even in snacks labeled as clean, organic, or healthy. But the truth is, they wreak havoc on your metabolism, your hormones, and make you super inflamed. That's why I'm obsessed with Prima, one of the few products I completely trust. Prima was created to push back against processed artificial foods and bring us back to real, nutritional, ancestral ingredients that actually nourish your body. It's packed with 100% grass-fed beef tallow, grass-fed collagen, and grass-fed whey protein, delivering bioavailable nutrients for muscle recovery, joint health, and overall vitality without any of the junk. No seed oils, no refined sugars, no artificial additives, and the best part, it's one of the few products that is certified seed oil safe. I always keep Prima stocked in my bag. It's my go-to post-workout, between meetings, or anytime I need an easy, high-quality protein boost. Getting in at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight can be really tough, but it's essential for building and maintaining muscle as you age or going through a fertility journey in your 40s and 30s like I am. And the flavor is delicious. Cacao, mocha, and salted caramel. You really can't go wrong. My favorite flavor is the salted caramel, plus the Prima bars are sweetened with organic raw honey and only contain organic whole food ingredients. So you're fueling your body with real clean nutrition. Because you're part of the Biohack-it community, you get 20% off. Just use code IMAN20 at eatprima.com. Ditch the seed oils, fuel your body right. You will feel the difference, I promise. Some of the women that have come to see you, what has been maybe a few of the most, not crazy, but I would say most, like you were even taken aback. You're like, wow, I can't believe they had this kind of healing or this result or.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes just almost like family of origin kind of things. Like they'll have a visitation from a family member that was passed, or they'll feel like they had a dream about someone, or something will happen like, gosh, I worked with women in different backgrounds. I worked with a woman who's from the Philippines, and I said, I'm seeing all these patterns, like they kind of look like woven patterns. And she said, oh, there's so much of that in the Philippines. And her mom always sent her these bags that she kind of just tossed because she was like, whatever, it's another one. And I said, I think they're really important for you. And they're kind of, the body speaks in metaphor. So it was like this beautiful patterns, and they were just so satisfying. And she was like, I think I'm going to get those out and use those more, and maybe, go a little further in it. And she got home and a package had just arrived with one for her. Things like that, where it's like, I think it's the field. When we tap into the field, there's more synergy and flow. Sometimes it's a synchronistic conversation, or one woman was looking at trying to find a house, she's trying to buy a house in a hot market. And so we worked on the field in terms of working less with just the masculine push, and more the feminine,
bring it in,
insight. Yeah, and so we really got dreamy with it and talked about kind of what she wanted. And then the next time she came in, a couple weeks later, she said, you're never going to believe it, but I ended up finding this house that was just so much like what we
discussed.
And she was not a big, believer, woo-woo. She was like, okay, I'll try it. But then, it can really open up in some amazing ways. And of course, I've had women get pregnant too, just dreams and things come in for them that they wanted.
If you had to describe what is, like, for people that might be super new to this, what is masculine energy in your words?
I mean, masculine is more what we see in the Western world. It's the lists and the tasks and the getting things done, and it's the drive. And true masculine, though, is meant to be playful and meant to be adventurous. And it's not just getting things done. Especially when the feminine's woven in, it's like, it really is what helps you make your dreams come into form.
Right.
But ideally, you're part of that too. It's not just about the achievement, but it's like part of the beauty
of everything. And what about the feminine?
The feminine is really the receptivity, the downloads, the truth. When I get into the feminine with women, they're like, that is bone truth, because the body knows. So they may come in and they're all put together and whatnot, but I go and work on and I say, oh, you're really tired, and not say that in a loving way, but the body's really showing me that. And they say, absolutely, like I am
exhausted,
not getting enough in. And so there's whatever it is, it's the truth really comes up in the feminine. She's the one who knows.
Right, and she
what's
knows
real.
Yeah, what's real and what's right for you. And how do you think, like, when we're living out of balance, besides the physical, where else can it affect us? We're living out of our chi is completely drained. We're not in balance between our masculine and feminine. What other things do you see come up in people?
I think they get off track. get off track. That's why I wrote Wild Creative, actually, again,
Right.
because there's a quote in there, and I can't remember who said it, but one of the deepest joys is to live near the channel in which your life is meant to dwell. And there's a saying with boats: if you change a degree, you're going to change a whole outcome of where you go. So if people are wildly off from their own download, they end up places where they're not
meant to be. So they're living out of.
It's like, did I dream this? Is this what I wanted to dream? I think it's just good to have those check-ins where when you touch in with your feminine, you get a real truth again of like, is this where I want to go? Or why am I doing that? Just a little bit more clarity on that. And then you're course correcting. Nothing has to be perfect. I think the other thing is the feminine is very compassionate and loving and understands that we're in this time with all these things happening, and there's a lot of pressures on people.
Right.
So it's also a very loving voice of like, it is what it is.
Right.
And though, when you bring those two together, you're more likely to be in sync with what you really want.
Right. And what you're really trying to create. I want to be mindful of your time because I know you have to leave in a bit. Is there, and I want a session with you, of course, because I've been dying to meet you and have this session and like just meet you in person. So for anybody listening, right, and they're going to walk, we talked about obviously the wild feminine, the masculine, the pelvic floor. Prior to them starting, let's say somebody wants to get pregnant or starting their fertility journey, because I'm going through mine right now.
Right.
What should they be tapping into as they prep their vessel for this very big time?
Yeah, well, I think even before, what I would say is often we're ignoring the womb until we want to get pregnant, and then all of a sudden we're, hello womb, come on, baby.
Yeah.
Or we're like, no pregnancy. And so it's it helps if you can start to get in touch with your womb. Now, of course, it can be the cycles, the bleeding time, when you're at the ebb and the flow, and just feeling what it feels like. We're more permeable when we bleed, which means also that's because we're meant to shed not just our menstrual blood, but also energy that we've picked up.
Right.
It's also a time for download. You're more permeable so you can receive the dreams of the menstruating women. And then when you are 2 weeks later more in ovulation, you're more contained. And so it's a different, ways.
Energy,
even
frequency.
Change how you move, like the way you work or what you do. Take a little bit of downtime. It's why when we're bleeding, we ought to go ahead and take a little bit more quiet or do less. And then around ovulation, you have more of a sturdiness and you can move differently. And just starting to feel those rhythms, tuning into the womb. And then realizing that the womb is beyond pregnancy. She really is a source point. So talking to her, accessing her information, just having a dialogue, just connecting, that's a good place to start. And then when I work with women when they're trying to get pregnant, they actually invite them to go ahead and plant dream seeds in the womb space, kind of a meditation where you come down and imagine an inner altar or an inner garden and start to plant the seeds of what you want.
Wow.
So often women are frustrated or they're talking about what it is they don't like. So this is an invitation to use the power of the womb and actually say, well, what I want is
the following.
Help me. When you state it in that way, whether it's a pregnancy or just things around your life, it really shifts the way you hold the energy because you realize your power more.
Amazing. I've just, after reading that book and, kind of following you on social media, I was just really excited to sit down with you and kind of break in some of these topics that are not widely known, but should be, because they provide so much to women's life and purpose and meaning and existence and healing, really, and kind of bringing us into the frequency where we should be, because we're living so extended out.
Absolutely. And I guess I would say it's making me think too of the men. If women are more in their center, it kind of sets up a different place for men to be.
Absolutely.
And I have a husband and 3 sons, and I've really seen the benefit of my access of the feminine for them. You stand in a different place. And particularly as a mother of sons, I've seen how we want strong men, we want healthy men, but we're kind of shutting them off at the source, both in the feminine and the masculine. Yeah. The first part for young boys, is access to the feminine. And again, feminine is not gender, it's a sensitivity, it's an ability to download.
Right.
Men are actually natural at that because they were often the hunters and those in the space where there was a wordless zone. So they had to communicate almost psychically. So having sons, I was really shocked at how good they were at reading the field.
Yeah.
But if no one meets them there, then they start to shut it down. So it's the first point is sort of key. You have to be, as a mother,
The interest, yeah.
in your feminine field, and then you can see them and validate that. And then that's how we have strong men, is they start with the feminine and then they build into the masculine, and they have to be able to express their masculine energy. We can't shut it down and cut it off, or we're not going to have the men that we want.
I just loved learning from you. And this has been an episode that I've been wanting to record for so long. So thank you for being in LA, universe. Thank you for making Tami be here at the same time as me.
Over.
Right?
It was amazing.
It was like divine timing. And not only have I enjoyed your book, now I get to meet you and I get to have a session, and then I can share all about that, kind of on my socials. So guys, I'll be posting about my session with Tami as well. So thank you, Tami.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much,
being here.
dear. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Biohack-it. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a short review. It really helps us reach more listeners just like you. Follow us on Instagram at biohack-it for exclusive content and the latest updates. Remember, your health is in your hand and curiosity heals.